I wanted to do a quick Lord of the Rings video, and I suppose this is just going to be a video on the state of Lord of the Rings, or the state of Lord of the Rings films and shows and stuff like that. How bad I think things are. You know, we had Amazon release a terrible show, a disrespectful show, Rings of Power. Now we've got Warner Brothers. They're going to be making a couple Lord of the Rings movies, and they have an animated War of the Rohirrim movie coming out very soon. And from what we've seen of War of the Rohirrim, it looks like they're going to be making changes to the original story of Helm Hammerhand. They're going to be injecting the modern-day girl boss trope into it. Okay, so I'm just going to start with the two Lord of the Rings movies coming from Warner Brothers, one of them being The Hunt for Gollum. Originally, we were hearing that The Hunt for Gollum was going to be two movies, or they were going to be making two movies on The Hunt for Gollum. And now I guess The Hunt for Gollum is just going to be one movie, and then there's going to be some other unnamed Lord of the Rings movie they're going to be making. So I found this article here, and this is from over a month ago, about a month and a half ago. It's from Inverse.com. Elijah Wood doesn't see new Lord of the Rings movies as a cash grab. Which, I mean, when I look at these projects that they announce, I mean, I don't know how you can't consider it a cash grab. But the part where Elijah Wood talks about it's right here. Wood continues, when it comes to, and I think we're all a little bit sensitive to this world is trying to make more films with a certain kind of franchise. There can be a degree of cynicism associated with it. There can be this sort of, are they going to mess up the thing that I love? Is it just this kind of cash grab to exploit a specific thing? Down here it continues, apparently there's going to be another couple of movies all telling new stories within that universe adjacent to the Lord of the Rings, Wood says. Honestly, there's so many different stories they could tell, so I'm excited to see what comes of it. Now I see this phrase right here, telling new stories within that universe, and first I'm thinking, okay, are they going to be making up stories within Tolkien's universe? I mean, if that were the case, I don't know why you'd have to do that, because Tolkien has such a richly detailed world as it is. Secondly, it's not your universe, it's Tolkien's universe, so I don't think any of us have any right to change anything about his universe. But anyway, I'll get to the cash grab comment. So it sounds like Elijah Wood does not think these movies are going to be a cash grab. Well, I'm going to give you another article from Bounding Into Comics. This is from September of this year, so 4 months ago at this point. David Zaslav, he's the CEO of Warner Brothers, reiterates his plan to focus on big franchises like DC, Harry Potter, and The Lord of the Rings, says they have been underused. So just to be clear, yes, these movies, they are going to be a cash grab. Warner Brothers is going to be exploiting Tolkien for as much money as possible. Now, in the case of Harry Potter, they have a Harry Potter show coming out. The author for Harry Potter is still alive, and she did greenlight this show, so I'm much more supportive of that show than I am of these Lord of the Rings movies. Harry Potter is J.K. Rowling's story, so if she wants to do a show, she can go right ahead. But in the case of Lord of the Rings, Tolkien has been dead for over 50 years. I mean, just ask yourself this, if Tolkien were still alive today, do you think he would have approved of Rings of Power? Do you think he would approve of these new movies that Warner Brothers making, one of them we know being The Hunt for Gollum? Do you think he would approve of them making changes to his story of Helm Hammerhand? I'll jump to War of the Rohirrim now. That movie's going to be coming out very soon. This article here is from comicbook.com, and this paragraph here is what I'm going to comment on. While Tolkien went into detail on the lives and deaths of Helm and his two sons in all recorded source material, the Hammerhand King's daughter was never named, and the producers of the War of the Rohirrim decided to expand her identity and who she could have been had she been given the depth to grow. From the promotional materials released by Warner Brothers, it's clear that the film places a strong, heavily developed look on Hera's life and involvement in the war. Plus, thanks to the animation team's gorgeous work, every character in the story has been brought to life. Okay, whatever. But in particular, I'll comment on this. The Hammerhand King's daughter was never named, and the producers of the War of the Rohirrim decided to expand her identity and who she could have been had she had been given depth to grow. Who she could have been had she had been given depth to grow. Does this sound like a veiled shot at Tolkien to any of you? It sure does to me. Sounds like they're taking a shot at Tolkien for ignoring this character, even though Tolkien was the one who created her and everything else in Middle-earth in the first place. Now look, on the War of the Rohirrim movie, let me just make this very clear. And those of you who defend the fact that they're girl bossing this movie, I know what you're going to say. You're going to call me a sexist. You're going to call me a bigot for criticizing what they're doing. It's very predictable what you people are going to say. Let me make real clear. Those of us criticizing what they're doing in War of the Rohirrim, none of us have a problem with the idea of a woman being the main character in a story. None of us have a problem with a woman doing anything heroic in a story. None of us have a problem with a woman fighting in a story. None of us have a problem with Eowyn killing the Witch King. The problem we have here is that this does not match the original story that Tolkien wrote of Helm Hammerhand. Tolkien never wrote that Hammerhand's daughter took up arms and fought, or that she led Rohan into battle or anything like that. She was mentioned in only one sentence and she wasn't even given a name. And the problem that we Lord of the Rings fans have with this is that they're making changes to Tolkien's story, and the reason why they're changing it is to inject this modern day girl boss trope into it. I mean, I'm just calling it what it is, that's what they're doing. Now, yes, Tolkien stories, they don't exactly meet modern day standards or modern day sensibilities. Yeah, there's not as many female characters in there as there are male characters. Tolkien stories are very much about war, and the blunt truth is that women, on average, are not as strong as men are. Therefore, wars have always been and will always be fought predominantly by men. I mean, that's just the truth of it. So yes, Tolkien stories, Lord of the Rings, they don't exactly meet modern sensibilities. They're not exactly diverse and inclusive by today's standards. And you know what? I don't care one bit if you don't like that. And the reason why I don't care if you don't like that is because Lord of the Rings is not your story. It's not my story either. It is Tolkien's story. So when you're going to make an adaptation of Tolkien's story or Tolkien's world, you stick to what Tolkien wrote. You stick to Tolkien's vision. You know, since he's the creator, that would be the respectful thing to do. And Warner Brothers in this War of the Rohirrim movie, they're not doing that. Instead, what they're doing is they're injecting their own fempowerment messages, their fempowerment activism into this movie. They're injecting the modern day girl boss trope into this. And they're changing the story of Helm Hammerhand in order to do that. They're changing Tolkien's work in order to put modern messages into it, modern tropes into it. And the act of taking somebody else's work, in this case Tolkien's work, the act of taking somebody else's work, somebody else's story, and changing it, injecting your messages, your activism, your ideology into it, is utterly disrespectful to that original author. It is completely disrespectful, it is disgusting, and frankly it's unforgivable. And that's what Amazon did with Rings of Power, and that's what Warner Brothers is doing with this movie. And that is why so many Lord of the Rings fans are rightly upset with Amazon, and they are rightly upset with what they're doing to this movie. Now, if they want to make some fantasy girl boss movie, they can go right ahead and write their own. They're free to do that. But again, Lord of the Rings, it is not their story. It is Tolkien's story. And if you ask me, if it's not your story, then you do not have the right to change it. Okay, let's see. Any funny Lord of the Rings headlines I found? Screen Rant, Rings of Powers, Adar explain origin, Morgoth connection, and death. I mean, this article should be very simple. Origin, he's not a real character. Morgoth connection, there is no connection because he's not a real character. Death, it didn't happen because he never existed in Tolkien's world in the first place. Okay, but the big question with Rings of Power is when is it going to be renewed for Season 3? Because we keep hearing that it's going to be renewed for Season 3, but the days and weeks keep passing and it still hasn't happened yet, so yeah, it's a little odd. I'll be dead honest here, folks. I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea why it hasn't been renewed yet. I would be absolutely shocked if the show got canceled. I'd be happy if it got canceled because it deserves to be canceled, but I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, Amazon is an enormous company. They've got plenty of money that they can burn. I don't know how much money they've designated to their studio. Maybe they're looking and saying, you know what, this show's not doing well. We gotta do something about this. Or maybe this is all nothing and they're just waiting. I have no idea what's going on here. All I'll say right now is I would be absolutely shocked if the show got canceled. I would also be shocked if it got shortened from 5 seasons down to 3 or 4. I would celebrate if either of those things happened, but I'd be quite surprised if either did. But I do expect that the show's going to continue. And frankly, folks, I don't think there's any good Lord of the Rings stuff coming out right now. Amazon's Rings of Power is maybe the most blatantly disrespectful adaptation ever made. I had some cautious optimism about the War of the Rohirrim movie, but probably a good, I think, year and a half back, more than that, rumors started to come out that they were going to be girl bossing that movie, so that optimism I have for the movie was gone pretty quickly. And these other movies that Warner Brothers is going to be making, I don't want them either. Those movies are just going to be a cash grab. They're just going to be Warner Brothers milking Tolkien for profit, and I do not like that at all. Yeah, I don't like anything that's going on with Lord of the Rings right now. Goodbye, everyone.